Thank you very much, Divyanam Prabhu, and to all the assembled devotees. I'm ecstatic to be connected to all of you for this excursion, which we're actually starting now, because meditating on Vrindavan, preparing to go to Vrindavan, making the trip to Vrindavan, making the trip back from Vrindavan. The Shastras say all of these are part of worship of the Dhāma. And out of the 64 items of devotional service mentioned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami, one of the 5 most important that he mentions that are so potent that even if you have a little connection to them, even if you don't have complete faith, but you're not offensive, he said you'll make rapid advancement in devotional service. One of them is living in the holy Dhāma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that you can live in the Dhāma, or should live in the Dhāma, in your mind and heart. You may not be able to be there physically, but since we're able to be there physically, it helps, because if we go there in a mood of service, then we'll pick up impressions from the Dhāma itself, as the Dhāma is an embassy of the spiritual world. Just as once I was in Calcutta, living there for some time, and I needed to go to the American embassy in order to do some work. I forget what it was, some visa thing. And when I went inside, I had grown used to living in Calcutta. I was even drinking the tap water for some reason. And then I went into that embassy, and behind the glass, which was especially reinforced glass, there were US Marines. And then when I looked a little further, what was behind the glass, there was Arrowhead water, which is quintessentially American bottled water. It must have been flown in. Even their snacks were from America. There were no Indian snacks. It was all, cookie brands I recognized from growing up as a kid. And I thought, wow, that's really America behind that glass. And in a similar way, Krishna extends himself as the Dhāma. There's no difference. Araju Bhagavan Vrajesha Taniyasta Dhāma Vrindavana. One of the tenets of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that Krishna and the Dhāma are the same. No difference. But he makes himself available to us so we can experience the aura of the Dhāma and the sound vibration of the Dhāma. And it's palpable. That's why when devotees go to Vrindavan in the right mood, service mood, and they spend some time there, when they leave, there's some palpitation. In fact, it's a warning I give devotees who are going to the Dhāma to prepare yourself, because there's a kind of boomerang effect that I call. So you go to the Dhāma, it's such a rarefied atmosphere. And when you come back home, the world seems a little disappointing after you've been there. There can be a little void. So you have to prepare for re-entry. But in that feeling of separation, there's more of a realization that, wow, actually my real home is in the Dhāma. In fact, I always feel it when I'm leaving Vrindavan after, like during Kartik, I always stay for at least a month in Vrindavan during the Kartik time. And then when we're driving out, the closer we get to Delhi, the more the vibration of Radhe Radhe starts to dwindle. And then there's this sense like, wow, the material world's still going on somehow or other. How are they doing it? How are they able to drag on here in the material world? Of course, in the airport, sometimes there are people that are from Mathura who are working in the airport, and they'll come up when they see devotees say, Radhe Radhe. And you feel like still a little bit here. So the feelings that we get while we're in the Dhāma, these are real, and they go into the heart. And this is important preparatory work for us to be part of Krishna's family in Goloka Vrindavan, is to develop this sense that Vrindavan is my real place. Wherever I may be, I'm just going through the motions, doing my duty elsewhere. But Vrindavan is my real home, We want that feeling. We want to go there. We do simple things in the Dhāma, like we'll be there and you'll find a special place that really inspires you, and then you'll offer an obeisance on the ground. You'll feel the warmth of the Vrindavan ground and some dust, and you won't care that the dust is getting all over you. In fact, you'll be happy that this sacred substance is now getting all over my nice clean cloth. And you'll let go, and then you'll feel the embrace of Vrindavan. And you feel safe that this is real spiritual bedrock. This is the real place. So having that experience and being able to pray there and see the deities, and then in a moment, a flash, a spurti, a glimpse we have of the sweetness of Vrindavan. Like sometimes, once when I was in Varsana and I went for darshan, actually it was the first time I was there, and people were mingling. The doors weren't open yet, but all of a sudden the bell started to ring, and the locals were so eager to get to the altar for the darshan that I got severely jostled. I mean, elbows were flying, and I was knocked out of the way. And actually, I felt, wow, I wish I had that kind of enthusiasm. It knocked some spiritual sense into me, being around those who are so eager to get to the altar. It was just a spontaneous reaction they had. I thought, wow, this is the Dhāma. And in the Dhāma also, the vibration, it's different. Every realm is defined by the vibration, the sound vibration that's there. So we hear, of course, now there's loudspeakers blaring and there's all kinds of things going on, but in general, the sound is all about, Krishna bhajan and various ways people are trying to glorify the Lord. So it's very powerful. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a small excerpt that I'd like to read you. Do we have time for this, Divyanand Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj, we have plenty of time, Maharaj.
So, in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagadananda Pandit had desired to go to Vrindavan. And of course, the pastime Jagadananda, he always wanted the comfort of the Lord. And he had brought some oil, some scented oil. And he gave it to Govinda to give to Mahaprabhu. And then Mahaprabhu looked at it and he said, no, I can't use that. I put that on my body or in my hair. People say that I'm a dari sannyasi, means some kind of sahaja. They'll smell it on me and they'll say, what kind of sannyasi is this? So he said, tell them to give it to the pujaris. They'll put it in the lamps in the Jagannath temple. They can burn it. So Govinda gave it back. And Jagadananda Pandit was walking through the courtyard with the pot. And Mahaprabhu mentioned something about the oil. And he said, oil? Who has said I brought you oil? And then he smashed the pot on the ground and the oil went splattering everywhere. This is the relationship he had with Mahaprabhu. This kind of intimate relationship. And then he went in his room and he closed the door and he wouldn't come out. He fasted for 3 days until Mahaprabhu begged him to come out and cook him lunch. And then after he fed Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu told the others to watch him and make sure he ate. And afterwards, Jagadananda came and he said, I've submitted so many times. I want to go to Vrindavan, but you won't let me to go, he said to Mahaprabhu. So this time, and I'll just read a few points, a few shlokas. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jagadananda then submitted a plea to Swarup Damodar Goswami. For a long time, he said, I've wanted to go to Vrindavan. I cannot go there, however, without the Lord's permission, which at present he denies me. He says, you're going because you're angry with me. Naturally, I have a desire to go to Vrindavan. Therefore, please humbly request him to grant his permission. Thereafter, Swarup Damodar Goswami submitted this appeal to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jagadananda Pandit intensely desires to go to Vrindavan. He begs for your permission again and again. Therefore, please permit him to go to Mathura and then return. You permitted him to go see Mother Shachi in Bengal, and you may similarly permit him to go to see Vrindavan and then return here. At the request of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu granted Jagadananda Pandit permission to go. The Lord sent for him and instructed him as follows. Now, here's some important instructions for those who are going to Vrindavan. You may go as far as Varanasi without encountering disturbances, but beyond Varanasi, you should be very careful to travel on the path in the company of the Kshatriyas. And Prabhupada writes in his purport, in those days, the path from Varanasi to Vrindavan was infested with robbers, and therefore there were Kshatriyas to protect travelers. So the trouble we take in traveling is considerable. You have to leave your home. You may be making money. You have to stop and go. Put aside everything. It's like, why am I could be making money. You put all that aside and say, like, no, this is more important. I'm going to Vrindavan. I don't have any other consideration. I'm just going there to see the Lord. Forget everything else right now. But along the way, there will be some travel comes from the word travail in Latin. Travail actually is an instrument of torture. So on one side, traveling is very difficult. That's the name of the material world, Durga, difficult to go, Durgachati. Nonetheless, when we're going to the Dham, the trouble we take is purifying. So be prepared. And when difficulties come up, things don't go the way you thought they were going to go, you didn't get what you wanted to get. In fact, I always like to see home means you get what you want. Travel means you get what you get. So don't worry. And you can see even Mahaprabhu is instructing that be careful as you travel. There are all kinds of people who approach you for money. There's monkeys will want to take your glasses, and they become more aggressive these days. Despite all this, we navigate our way through the Dham. And just be careful, but expect a little trouble. So he continues. As soon as the plunderers on the road see a Bengali traveling alone, they take everything from him, arrest him, and do not let him go. When you reach Mathura, you should remain with Sanatana Goswami and offer respectful obeisances to the feet of all the leading men there. So this is instruction he's giving about when you go to the Dham, stay with your group. So Mahaprabhu says, do not mix freely with the residents of Mathura. Show them respect from a distance. Because you're on a different platform of devotional service, you cannot adopt their behavior and practices. So some people say, oh, this is sectarianism. The spiritual world is sectarian. Everyone has their group. There's Vaikuntha, there's Goloka Vrindavan, even within Goloka, there are people with different tastes and so forth. And so when you go to a place like this, there's so many different groups locally and people coming in from all over the world. Of course, preaching is another thing, but just as far as associating, just be a little careful. Some people are on a very superficial level when they come to the Dham. Others are very serious. Other people are looking for people to give them their ear so they can tell them what they're doing wrong and so forth. So better to stay within the safety of those that you know and trust as much as possible. My advice. Then he said, visit all 12 forests of Vrindavan in the company of Sanatana Goswami. Do not leave his association even for a moment. You should remain in Vrindavan for only a short time and then return here as soon as possible. Also, do not climb Govardhan Hill to see Gopal deity. And Prabhupada gives his purport. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises that one avoid remaining in Vrindavan for a very long time. As the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. If one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. Therefore, those who have not attained the stage of spontaneous love for Krishna should not live in Vrindavan for very long. It is better for them to make short visits. One should avoid also climbing Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity, since Govardhan Hill itself is identical with Gopal. One should not step on the hill or touch it with his feet. One may see Gopal when he goes elsewhere. So when we go to Vrindavan as ISKCON devotees, people are watching us also, and the etiquette that we enact there, that we adhere to, is important because it represents our founder Acharya and how he was able to bring millions of people together and bring them to the highest level of Vaishnava behavior. So we could keep that in mind too, that we preach by our example as we move about the Dhāma. So the time that you're all taking to do this is invaluable. If you think about the chances we have for full immersion in Krishna consciousness during our lives, they may be rare because life goes on and we get swept along, and who knows how long we have. So this is a especially valuable time for all of us to be in the Dhāma together and to be there in the mood of service, just to serve the Dhāma by appreciating it and by being aware of how glorious it is. And finally, I say that the most important aspect of a pilgrimage like this is the hearing and chanting that we do. Of course, this is pointed out. Krishna said this at Kurukṣetra when all the sages were present, and they wanted to hear directly from Krishna. And he said, yasyātma-buddhiḥ kuṇape tri-dhātuke, kalatrādiṣu, bhauma ijya-dhīḥ. Yat-tīrtha-buddhiḥ salile karhicij janeṣv abhijñeṣu go-kharaḥ. The sages said, "Wow, that's the most amazing thing we ever heard." And what did Krishna say? He said, when you go to the Dhāma, he said, don't go there just to take a bath and leave your sins, just a little dip and I get purified. He said, go there to hear from the holy sages. Go there to hear about the realizations of Krishna's pastimes and Bhagavad-gītā and all these things in that rarified atmosphere. That's the real purpose to be in the Dhāma, is to find those who are very serious about spiritual life and hear from them. And, it's not how many places you go, it's what mood you're in when you go there and what you get to hear while you're there. Because what can we see with our eyes generally? Of course, the Dhāma is beautiful in all its aspects, but the more we're able to position ourselves in such a way that we can hear about Krishna Katha, wherever we go there, that's our greatest benefit in the Dhāma. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Just on this point you've just made about hearing, many devotees have by now have heard about the yajna yourself and His Holiness Keshav Bharati Maharaj has been doing for 19 years. Would you please share that experience? What does it feel like to be in Dhāma, especially of all the places, Govardhan, and read Bhagavatam? And yeah, I mean, I've had that experience, but it would be nice to hear from you, Maharaj, on that and how it really edifies oneself, and then to come back into our various camps and carry on with our Krishna consciousness. Would you kindly share something on that, Maharaj?
Well, Govardhan's about an hour from Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan during Kartik, there's a lot going on. And especially this year, I'm hearing from Shruti Kirti Prabhu and other God brothers about how it's really cooking right now. I mean, there's thousands of devotees already there, and it'll get bigger during Kartik. So this is going to be a really big year because a lot of people are feeling it's safer to travel, and they've been away from the Dhāma for a long time, so they're going to be back. And it's like that anyway, but it'll be more so this year. But when I'm in Vrindavan during Kartik, and I'm able to go over to Govardhan, there's a different atmosphere there. It's a little quieter. And also we're sequestered because it's in an ashram with a gate around it. We go inside and we very deliberately have a tight schedule. Did I say that right? Schedule. And there we apportion the day so that we can directly hear from Srimad Bhagavatam and other literatures at least 5 hours a day. And someone might say, well, that's not very much, 5 hours a day hearing Bhagavatam. There's 24 in a day. My realization is that in order to hear five hours a day without any interruption requires a lot of preparation. And you have to go to a place where you're not get disturbed. I've tried it in Vrindavan sometimes, and it's not as easy. People know where you live. They come knock on your door. There's also noises. Of course, there's noises at Govardhan too, but we have, a room with thick walls and things like that. The experience is that when we're able to hear without interruption, the mind starts to settle down and really take shelter of the Shastra. Hearing the stories from Bhagavatam, I could just remember the years. We tried to go through contiguous sections so that we hear a large swath of the Srimad Bhagavatam all in once. And I just remember how the devotees, after hearing the fourth canto together, the whole thing, it took us maybe, 15 days to read the whole thing. And then some of the devotees were on a break, and one of the brahmacharis, he looked at his spiritual master, Keshav Bharati Maharaj, and said, what was I thinking? In other words, beforehand, he had a very different perception of the world, and afterwards that was transformed into spiritual vision by the power of the Bhagavatam. Last point, and that is that it's always good to look for where, be in the Dhāma, but look for where the more serious hearing and chanting is going on. And sometimes I've compared it to inveterate gamblers. Some people are addicted to gambling. So whenever they go to a city, what they want to know is, where's the gambling match going on? And usually it's in some back room somewhere. You have to knock on the door and know the password for them to let you in. So they knock and they go in there. It's like, oh, can I get in this game? And they'll let them in. If they have the right credentials, they're really, they have the money and they're able to enter in. So I always feel like wherever we go, there's always a back room where somebody's intensely hearing and chanting. That's where you want to try to get in, know the password, be ready for it. It's like, can you let me in here so I can hear and chant? So it feels like that. And just being at Govardhan is a transformative experience. I could sit for hours, sometimes I do, on the roof chanting, and I watch all the pilgrims just walking around Giriraj and just seeing them, how joyful they are, even when it's really hot. And some of them are doing Dandavat Parikram. No one's ever glum or miserable. When they're there with Giriraj, just walking and walking and walking, or doing Dandavats, even kids doing Dandavat Parikram, they all look happy. Contrast that with going to Disneyland. Everyone's in anxiety. They're worrying they're spending too much money. The kids are restless because it's the mode of passion. But in Govardhan, everybody seems happy and satisfied, and the hearing and chanting is plentiful, as much as you can do. So that's really happiness in life, when we know that we can develop, when we have a place to go to where we can do that.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Dear devotees, we have plenty of time, at least the next 20 minutes. Towards the last 10 minutes, I'll cover some logistics for the trip. But yeah, please feel free to ask or share any reflections you may have from the monologue, or any questions you may have in relation to going to the Dhāma. And yeah, feel free to either unmute yourself and speak up, or you could raise your hand using one of the reaction buttons.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. All
Hare
glory to
Krishna.
the Dhāma.
Great to see you, Prabhu.
Thank you. That was a wonderful reflections, and I hope and have a desire that one day we can have the same love for Vrindavan Dham as you. I have a question. We hear many times, and you also mentioned this, that when we go to the Dhāma, and Prabhupada mentions it many times in the purports, that we need to take and hear from the Mahatmas and the devotees who are there, not just going and taking a dip in the holy river or a pond. Now, how does it apply? Now in this trip, we are all within the association. We'll be hearing from you, and we'll be hearing from other devotees. So I think we are covered for this trip. But if we go for other dhams, how do we apply that principle? Because there are so many bogus lecturers and bogus things that goes out in many of the pilgrimage places. So how do we apply that? And how do we also apply it in this trip as well, Maharaj?
Just take advantage whenever you get an opportunity to hear and chant. And also avoid bogus assemblies. I mean, some of them are very grandiose. Even around Kartik time, there are Bhagavad Saptas with professionals who come, and you know, it's very fancy and so forth, but we're not so attracted. You can always create your own sangha. Whenever you're traveling in various holy places, the activities are the same. We hear and chant together and do the morning program and things like that. So you just do the same thing. You'll be next to the Kṛṣṇa Balaram. We all will be, I think. And you could take advantage and just always be hearing and chanting. You know, my godbrother, Rajendra Nandan Prabhu, I spent a lot of time going to various holy places with him. Sadly, he passed away recently. But I just have so many memories of, we'd always be hearing when we were traveling around the Dham. We'd bring something with us, and as we were traveling there on the bus, we'd be reading back and forth of where we were going, who we were going to see, things like that. And when you go to other places, for instance, they may be off the ISKCON grid, but there, create your own sangha. You know, you have Prabhupada's books, you can hear from them. And if you happen to meet a person who's got the right mood and so forth, then, you know, you can find good association and tell who's actually in the right line, so you can feel comfortable.
Thank you.
I think sometimes in the past, even when Prabhupada was here, devotees would go to Vrindavan, then they go to Radhakund, and then they think, I think I'll get an inside track somewhere here. I'll meet some sadhu who knows more than anybody else. And there's plenty of people there who tell you that. And it's like, you guys, you don't know the real thing, let me tell you. And when they go there in that mood, then people prey on them that, yeah, like, you don't know anything. I'll tell you the real thing. So we have everything. It's just take advantage of what we have, and everything's good.
I can just wanted to add to that, Maharaj, that I remember that when we went through a certain situation in our life, and both myself, my wife, Vrindarika Ramaya, we were in Vrindavan, and we were really intensely praying, you know, after going to the Dham. For the first time at that time, we felt we didn't like we were trying to go everywhere because of certain situation. And then somehow we were in Lohi Bazaar and the famous bookshop we went in, and there is a very small book of His Holiness Shivram Maharaj which I picked up. I think something in relation to the Shiksha outside ISKCON or Shiksha within ISKCON. And just reading that on the way on my flight back into London, that really helped me personally, actually. And by some Krishna's arrangement, we then obviously were with Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj, who further guided us, and finally we got connected. So, and I can very much resonate with that feeling. And often what happens is that I heard this from Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj, that, you know, there isn't a harm, but that the harm causes mainly what happens is when you go to such places and you hear something which can disturb your faith actually, or which may be not so very nice to hear about the Guru Parampara or Srila Prabhupada for that matter. And yeah, so that was something very, very profound, and that kind of stayed with us actually. So just wanted to add that.
And Mahaprabhu said in his instruction to Jagannatha Pandit, he said, respect them from a distance. Prabhupada had to. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's brother is named Lalit Prasad Thakur. And a couple of my godbrothers used to go to him because in the early days, he was pouring out some bhajans that nobody knew. And, he was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's brother, for heaven's sake. And, he had his own mutt and everything. So they were going there and listening. And then Prabhupada wrote him a letter, which I saw. And in it, he said, Lalit Prasad Thakur is the brother of my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Lalit Prasad Thakur is a pure devotee in his own right. But because he has a difference of opinion with my Guru Maharaj, I ask you not to go there, because then you'll become confused. So, the respect is there. He's a pure devotee in his own right. And nonetheless, be in your lane so that you can take advantage of the way Krishna is coming to you.
Thank you, Bhagwan. Any other comments or questions, devotees? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, I wanted to know, while doing the parikrama of Govardhan, what should be the mood, one should carry?
Well, Giriraj fulfills all desires. It's uncanny, actually. When I'm there in Kartik, any projects that we've conceived there and talked about that always have when the janeṣv is there and we pray on it, there's always something special that comes out of it. So it's helpful to have a sankalpa when you go to the Dham and when you go to meet Giriraj, that you can pray for pure devotional service. You can pray for the wherewithal to take advantage of the best association. Like a prayer that I make frequently is that, please give me the best association and the wherewithal to take advantage of it. Because good association can be there, and then it's like, nah, that's okay. I'd rather look at YouTube. And we miss it. We miss our whole lives. So if you have a spiritual prayer that resonates with you, it's very helpful to bring that in. When you come to the various deities, you can offer that prayer. It also helps if you have some verses that you'd like to offer to the various deities that you go to. So if you've memorized some verses, you can stand there and recite them. If you haven't, then I recommend, make copy, or if you carry them on your phone, that's all right. Monkey might take your phone though. If you copy them out and carry them, I put them in a Ziploc bag so they don't get wrecked. And when I need them, I pull them out. And when I go to a temple that we're visiting, I have some prayer to offer. Once we were at Radharaman, my godbrother and I, we used to travel to many places, not Rajendrananda, but another senior godbrother who was very familiar with India, and spent a lot of time with Prabhupada and had a lot of stories. And whenever we'd go around, we'd always chant the Brahma Samhita together in one place or another. And once we were at Radharaman temple, and we started chanting Brahma Samhita, and then we could see the pujaris were getting ready to close the darshan. And we weren't done with the Brahma Samhita. And so then the head pujari, we watched him, he indicated to the junior pujaris to keep the curtains open so we could finish. And we felt so like, there was some reciprocation from the deity there. Like the head pujari said, let him finish. So, I always remember how substantial it is to bring some prayers with you that you've deliberately brought to offer to the Lord. And that will become really a meaningful exchange. You should always put some rupees, something to give out here and there. But if you bring prayers also, that's especially powerful. Raghavendra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, thank you for your wonderful association. And you have been out of your causeless mercy. You have been giving us so much time and guidance. And because of your guidance, this Janmashtami has been really, really great. It has been phenomenal. It has been truly exceptional because of your guidance and because of Divyanam Prabhu engaging us in Gomatsya program. So I have one question, Maharaj, especially whenever we tour to any dham, when we visit any temple, like majority of the temples, there is going to be some panda, some pujari. They would say, you come and you do this puja, it is going to be beneficial. And then the kind of glories that they give or that they talk about of those ceremonies or those pujas, sometimes it is very enticing to, okay, why not we try? Why not we do them, just in case? So what is your recommendation, Maharaj, for whether do we entertain such pujas and ceremonies at different holy places or different temples that in the dhams?
Well, first of all, for everyone who's a book distributor, you get to see what it feels like when people approach you, ask you to do something. Because we do it to everybody else. We walk up and say, "Hey, excuse me, come over here. Take this, give me your money." So we know what it feels like to give it out. Then when you're in the Dham and people say, "Hey, come here, I'm going to do a puja for you." So on a very practical level, usually when we're together on a tour like this, then the leader will make an arrangement when they go to the temple to pay the pandas. It's part of the budget. It's part of the cost of doing the pilgrimage. And so they go in and give a hefty donation and say, okay, now let's leave everybody else alone. Because generally we'll go there as a group and we'll want to be able to sit peacefully and hear and have bhajan and stuff. So that's one of the arrangements. But in general, first of all, you should know that this is an age-old system. Even when Mahaprabhu was traveling, it's there in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's specifically mentioned by Vrindavana Thakur that Mahaprabhu smiled. He laughed at how much the pandas were after him for money and trying to get him to give and so forth. So it's always been there. But I recommend just being artful and trying to avoid it. As a group, you can avoid it. If you go individually, they have their whole thing, and it's a kind of an upsell to try to get you to give more rupees. Now give for this, give for that. But if you happen to be caught in that and you don't want to be ungracious, just be there and appreciate that, you're there in the Dham. They're throwing some flowers in Radhakund for you, and you can give them a few rupees, a couple hundred rupees, only a few bucks anyway. I'm just saying it better to go with the flow if you absolutely don't have the technique to not get caught in the first place. So it's not a ringing endorsement for sitting down with every panda that approaches you. It's more if you put out the vibration that we've got this. And part of that is like when I go to Radhakund with a group, usually we're on Govardhan Parikram and we end up at Radhakund, and maybe I'll have 6-7 devotees along, and then we start doing our shlokas. We do a whole set of shlokas. We'll do the Upadeshamrita. We always chant that when they're at Radhakund, because it ends up at the last 3 verses that talk about Radhakund. And when the pandas come by, they understand, like, these people are engaged and they have somebody, they're serious. They're not here just wondering what's going on. So that helps also. I hope that helped, Prabhu.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I know you have already mentioned about monkeys and the pandas who can come and bother us and agitate us. But I would still like you to shed some light of how to avoid offenses, because we are going to stay for 2 weeks. It's a long time. Whether we are bothered by the cleanliness, whether we are bothered by the fellow devotees, monkeys, it could be anything. So how to keep up that mood for 15 days?
Just chant Hare Krishna. It's just like on Sankirtan, when you're going around, the mind can start thinking, who's going to answer the door? How am I going to sell a book? You don't have to think, you just have to chant, because Krishna's the controller of all the senses and the mind also. So don't stop chanting. When you're in the Dhāma, think about it ahead of time. Organize your thoughts in such a way that you keep the transcendental vibration going. In fact, when I'm in the Dhāma, I make vows to chant more. And then like you'll find yourself taking the long way around, so you don't have to walk through the crowd and everyone's going to go, hey, how you been? You still living there? And like, hey, what are you doing these days? And the other questions people ask you generally in a big crowd is like, when did you come? And then they'll say, how long will you be here? How many times do you want to answer that in a day? So if you figure out like, okay, I'm going to chant extra rounds when I'm here. So what do I have to do that? And then also when you're walking around, whatever you see, whatever you don't see, whatever happens, just keep saying, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Amam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuya kalpate. You rise above all the modes, you rise above all limitations. Everything's possible by chanting Hare Krishna. So that's practical. And if you can't chant extra rounds because of the schedule or whatever, just make it a point to keep the vibration going as much as possible all the time. And you'll find that it'll clear your vision, and whatever kind of impulses are there that aren't that are rising from the senses, they'll all be satisfied.
Yes,
Thank
Ravi. Thank you, Mansi Mataji.
Thank you.
Ravi Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I wanted to ask for some advice, please, that when we're traveling specifically as a large group, how best should we arrange ourselves to best absorb ourselves in everything that we're there for, because the group is so large?
The best is to think about how to do service to the other pilgrims, because there's always something that you can do. Of course, Divyanam Prabhu, Narika Ramad, they'll have it very organized. But fact is that if you go with a service attitude and you think, how can I serve the other devotees? If you think the other way, how come I'm not getting enough service over here? Then you'll always be in anxiety. But when you're thinking like, let me be the one who helps. Is there something to clean? Is there something to do for the devotees, to set up and whatever? And once you're on the inside, because you're a servitor and you have that service mood, then you'll naturally fall into the right kinds of relationships, and everything can be overcome by service. Jeev Krishna das e bishvas kole to aduko nai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when you're in that service mood, no duke, everything fits. So that's a really practical thing. Go there with the mood. Rajendranandan Prabhu did that. He was always serving. I saw him. He was always looking, like, get the ghee lamp. And in Mayapur, he would always be there early in the morning, established that was his service. He would take the ghee lamp to hundreds of devotees. And whatever you can find where you can be of service, if you stay in that mood when you're moving around with all the devotees, then you'll never be agitated by the differences, the way people walk, whatever they say, everything will be okay.
It's very sweet. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I remember Guru Maharaj sharing this experience with us Maharaj, you could tell us maybe at the end how once there was a chartered flight for Prabhupada disciples, how you all went in a flight to see Prabhupada in Mayapur. Would you please tell us about that?
Yeah, Mahendra Prabhu, who was part of the BBT in Los Angeles, set it up. And there were enough of us on the East and West Coast in America so that it warranted getting our own jet. So we got an airliner, and some of us got on in California and others got on in New York. And then we stopped in Kuwait to refuel. And then we landed in Dum Dum Airport. And then we went to Mayapur to meet with Prabhupada. And on the plane, back in the old days, they used to have movie screens on airplanes. Everybody would have to see the movie. Of course, now they have those little screens on the backs of the seats, drives everybody nuts. But it's got a big, they used to have one big screen per section on the airline. And they'd show a movie during that. And during our flight, we were able to set up the altar there. We built a little altar, so Gaura Nitai was there. We had our Mangal Artik on the plane. And then coming back, actually, we had a jumbo jet. It was 747. So a lot of it was all the same devotees, but we shared it with a bunch of Europeans and others who were coming back from India. And that was quite raucous because the devotees were young and we had just come from the Dham. Everybody had kartals and madungas. It was easier to carry things on in those days, especially from India, because you just slip them a few extra rupees and they didn't care. And so the devotees kept spontaneously breaking out in kirtan with all their new drums and kartals, and some getting up and dancing. And the pilot was saying like, no, don't dance on the flight. It's moving the airplane. And it was quite an experience, but it was extremely sweet. And I learned this lesson from Prabhupada early on, that he wanted us all to drop whatever we were doing and come to the Dham. Because at that time there was a fledgling movement and there was so much going on that, we felt, we can't leave this. But Prabhupada said, no, leave it and come here, be with me in the Dham, both in Mayapur and Vrindavan. We would go and we just stay with Prabhupada. Means that we'd all be there for class, the whole international site for Krishna conscious, everyone could make it. And then we'd go to Vrindavan and sit with him, and that's what he wanted. And he told us while we were there to discuss unity and diversity, how we would work together around the world to spread the Krishna conscious movement. But you can know for sure that Prabhupada thought it was really valuable for us to all come to the Dham together at intervals, to be there together, to feel the potency of the Dham. So you're all doing the right thing. And I'm deeply grateful to Divyanand Prabhu and Vrindarika Ramai. They have a special love for the Dham that I noticed as soon as I met them. And they're the right ones because of that love and also because of their organizational skills to give us the kind of experience that Prabhupada would want us to have in the Dham.